Would you marry me right now? Even if it's just to stop them from taking Noah away, Emily's voice shook as the words left her mouth raw, terrified and painfully real. She hadn't rehearsed it. She hadn't even meant to say it out loud. But the moment hung in the air like thunder right before the sky breaks open. Daniel froze, his expression unreadable. The weight of her question pressed against the silence thicker than the storm that had once brought him to her doorstep. This wasn't about romance. This was about war, a battle for the boy they both loved more than life itself. A boy who had brought light back into Emily's world after years of quiet darkness, and now someone was threatening to tear him away. She could barely breathe. Her heart pounded like a drum in her ears as she waited, terrified she'd gone too far, terrified she hadn't gone far enough. But if you think that moment was the turning point, wait until you see what came after. Stay with us. What happens next will shatter everything you thought you knew about love, family, and sacrifice. The storm that night came without warning, fast, furious, and unrelenting. In the quiet town of Hudson Valley, New York, most homes were shuttered, lights dimmed, and families huddled close, waiting for the worst to pass. But in a small brick cottage tucked behind a modest bakery, a woman named Emily Carter was preparing a bowl of soup for one unaware that her life was about to change forever. Emily, 45, had spent years alone since the tragic death of her husband. The bakery which she'd inherited from her mother had been her anchor, the warmth of rising bread and neighborhood chatter replacing what once was laughter and companionship. She had no children. Life hadn't dealt her that card, but she carried herself with quiet grace, pouring her love into every loaf she baked, every child she offered a cookie to at the counter. She had just turned off the stovetop when it happened, a frantic pounding at the door. Not a knock, a desperate hammering. Emily froze, the ladle in her hand trembling slightly. No one in their right mind would be outside in this weather. Lightning tore across the sky, and for a second the silhouette behind the frosted glass came into view. A man. No, a man holding something. She moved to the window, squinting past the rain. That something was a baby. Her instincts kicked in before her fears could. She threw open the door. The man looked about 30, soaked to the bones, shivering violently, and clutching a bundled-up infant. "Please," he gasped. "My car broke down a few miles back. My son, he has a fever. We need shelter, just for the night." Emily didn't hesitate. "Get in." Quickly, as they stepped inside, the warmth of the house enveloped them. But the baby Noah was burning with fever despite being drenched. Emily stripped away the wet blanket with practiced hands and wrapped the child in dry towels, her hands shaking but firm. "You're lucky," she said softly. "This could have gotten bad fast." The man, whose name was Daniel Whitmore, slumped into the armchair, soaked and emotionally frayed. "I didn't know where else to go," he admitted, his voice cracking. "The nearest hospital is hours away. I didn't want him to die in my arms." Emily looked at him carefully. There was something deeply human behind those eyes. Raw grief, helplessness, but also something she couldn't quite place, a silence that held weight. "Don't worry," she whispered gently, touching the baby's cheek. "He's safe now." As the night wore on, Emily warmed formula from Daniel's baby bag, changed little Noah's diaper with the ease of someone who had cared for children before, and sang softly under her breath while rocking him near the fireplace. Daniel watched from the kitchen doorway, exhaustion written all over him. "You're amazing with him," he said quietly. Emily smiled, a sad tug at the corner of her mouth. "I always wanted to be a mother. Never got the chance." He didn't pry. He just nodded, the silence between them deepening into something understanding. Later, over a bowl of hot soup, Daniel told her his story, how he'd lost his wife Rachel during childbirth, how he'd quit everything to care for Noah, and how his savings were drying up. "I'm supposed to have a job interview tomorrow in New York City," he said, "but I don't even know how I'm going to pull that off." Emily stared into her soup for a long moment before meeting his eyes. "Leave him with me." Daniel blinked. "What Noah's comfortable here. He needs to rest. And frankly, I'd love to spend the day with him." He hesitated. "Emily, I just met you." She smiled gently. "Sometimes the right people walk into your life, soaked to the bone, holding a baby, and looking like they've been through hell. That doesn't make them strangers. That makes them meant to be there. But just as Daniel was about to say yes, a loud bang echoed from the back of the house. The power flickered, then went out. Emily rushed to the kitchen only to find smoke her old fuse box had blown. Worse, the smell of gas lingered. Something was leaking. Without a word, Daniel grabbed Noah and shouted, "Out now!" Emily didn't hesitate. They dashed into the rain again, baby shielded in Daniel's arms, just as a spark snapped behind them with a low boom. The back wall didn't explode, but a corner of the kitchen caught fire. Smoke curled upward. Emily stood in the yard drenched again, shaking not from cold, but from the realization of how close she had come to disaster. And yet through it all, her first instinct was to reach for Noah. Daniel saw it, saw how she held the child, saw how she didn't care that her home was smoking, or that her hair was wet, or that she might have just lost part of the kitchen her mother once cooked in. All she cared about was Noah. As emergency volunteers from the town came rushing in to help, Daniel turned to her, eyes wide. "You didn't even flinch," he said. Emily laughed through her tears. "You did, but only when I told you to trust me." That night, after the fire was put out and volunteers left, Daniel sat beside her on the porch. Noah slept soundly in Emily's arms. The stars had come out. The rain had stopped. Daniel whispered, "You know, I don't even believe in fate." She turned to him. "But I think tonight changed that. What would you do if a stranger placed everything they had into your hands, trust a child their last hope? Would you open your door?" Very sorry to pause here, but we'll continue this emotional journey. Now, I'd love to ask, do you think Daniel made the right choice, leaving Noah with Emily, or was it a dangerous risk? If this story touched your heart, even just a little, please like and share the video. It truly helps support stories that matter. The morning sun peeked through the misty trees of Hudson Valley, casting a soft golden light over the small cottage where everything had changed the night before. Emily Carter stood at her kitchen sink, hands slightly trembling as she dried the last bottle she just washed for baby Noah. The scent of warm cinnamon rolls filled the air, comforting, familiar grounding. But nothing about today felt ordinary. Upstairs, Daniel was still asleep. The man who had appeared on her porch like a ghost out of the storm now rested in her guest room like someone who belonged there. And downstairs, nestled in a quilt-lined basket near the fireplace, was Noah sleeping peacefully, cheeks flushed a healthy pink. Emily couldn't stop watching him. Her heart ached in a way she hadn't felt in years. Not painful, no, it was something deeper, something terrifying. A fragile, glowing feeling she hadn't allowed herself to feel since the day the doctor told her she'd never carry a child. She was falling for that little boy, and it scared her to death. Daniel stirred not long after. He came downstairs, hair-tousled, eyes heavy with the kind of exhaustion that never really leaves a parent. But when he saw Emily sitting on the rug beside Noah, softly humming, he paused. There was something in his gaze. Gratitude, yes, but also something quieter, unspoken. "He's better," Emily said gently. "Fever's gone." Daniel nodded, rubbing the back of his neck. "Because of you. I don't know how to thank you." "Start by nailing that job interview," she smiled, trying to lighten the air. He grinned, but it was tight. "That's something I need to talk to you about." She raised an eyebrow. "The company, it's not just any firm. It's Whitmore & Kosher Holdings. My brother Brian runs it now, but technically I still own it." Silence. Emily blinked, confused. "What do you mean you own it?" Daniel hesitated, then sighed. "I'm the CEO. Or I was. I stepped back after Rachel died. I needed to be a father, not a board member. But I didn't want anyone to know, not the media, not the board, not even people like you. I didn't want kindness that was filtered through status." The room grew still. Emily slowly stood staring at him, like she didn't know whether to laugh or be angry. "So you're not some desperate single dad barely getting by. You're a millionaire who showed up at my door with a feverish baby and let me believe I am a desperate dad," he cut in. "I just happen to also have a company I don't care about anymore. Not the way I care about Noah or what we found here." Emily turned away, wrapping her arms around herself. "You lied. I hid." "There's a difference." She didn't respond. Instead, she picked up Noah, who had begun to fuss, and cradled him instinctively. Daniel's gaze dropped to the floor. Look, I didn't know how to say it, he said softly. But yesterday, when I left Noah here, I felt peace for the first time in 8 months. I trusted you with everything. Before she could respond, a knock came at the door, sharp, official. Emily froze. Daniel's body tensed. She opened it slowly to reveal a man in a tailored gray suit holding an envelope with a gold-embossed logo. Mr. Whitmore, the man asked, glancing behind her. Brian Whitmore sent me. He said to give you this immediately. Daniel stepped forward, took the envelope, and tore it open. As he read, his face drained of color. What is it? Emily asked, voice tightening. Daniel handed her the letter. She scanned it quickly, an urgent directive to return to New York City, an emergency board meeting, a motion to remove him permanently if he didn't show within 24 hours. You're being forced out, she whispered. They think I've gone soft, he said bitterly. They're wrong. Emily looked at him, unsure whether she was seeing the man she met last night or someone entirely new. She didn't know whether to comfort him or step back. That night, after Daniel left to take a call in private, Emily walked Noah through the backyard garden she rarely visited. The sky was streaked with lavender and orange, but her thoughts churned in muted gray. Could she really trust this man? Could she open her heart to a child who might be taken from her at any moment? And yet, when Noah reached for her with those tiny hands, when he buried his head in her shoulder and sighed like she was home, every doubt dissolved. Love doesn't ask permission, it just arrives. Daniel returned hours later, face hardened, but eyes soft. I've made my choice, he said quietly. I turned them down. Emily stared at him. What I said, no to the board, no to the job in Manhattan, no to the penthouse. I'm staying. Here, with you. Her breath caught in her throat. I don't need a skyscraper to feel powerful, he continued. I just need to know Noah is safe. And if that means starting over here, then so be it. She said nothing, but the way her eyes welled up said everything. As they stood in the doorway, a breeze moved through the valley and Daniel reached for Noah, who to his surprise pushed away and clung tighter to Emily. They laughed softly, the weight of the past 48 hours finally lifting. And yet somewhere beyond the peace of their little cottage, something stirred in the distance. A storm of a different kind. And when it came, they'd have to fight harder than either of them ever had before. We'll continue this journey of love, truth, and sacrifice in the next part very soon. Thank you for staying with us. Before we continue, let me ask, if you were in Emily's shoes, would you forgive Daniel for hiding his identity? Or would the trust be too broken? If you felt connected to this story, please show your love. Like, share, and support stories that speak to the heart. In the days that followed Daniel's decision to stay in Hudson Valley, peace settled over Emily's small cottage like a warm blanket. The rhythm of life returned early mornings, baking bread walks with Noah through the garden, Daniel renovating the back porch with sleeves rolled up and sawdust in his hair. For the first time in years, Emily felt something she'd forgotten she was allowed to feel. She felt like she belonged. But as the winter sun set earlier, each day shadows crept back in the form of a woman neither Emily nor Daniel had expected to confront. Her name was Madison Blake. It began with a letter delivered by courier, formal, cold, laced with legal language. Madison, best friend of Rachel Evans, Daniel's late wife, was challenging Daniel's custody of Noah. She claimed that before Rachel passed away, she had signed a legal document appointing Madison as Noah's guardian should anything happen to her. Emily sat frozen on the couch as Daniel read the letter aloud, his hands trembling despite his calm exterior. She's claiming I'm emotionally unstable, that I abandoned my corporate role, left the city, and handed Noah to someone without formal maternal qualifications. You mean me, Emily said quietly. He didn't answer, but the pain in his eyes said everything. I knew Madison didn't approve of me, he finally said. She always thought I was too idealistic, too impulsive. But I never imagined she'd take it this far. That night, after putting Noah to sleep, Emily sat by the fireplace, staring at the flames as if searching for answers within them. She felt it all: rage, fear, helplessness. But more than anything, a quiet question burned inside her. What if he loses custody? What if we lose Noah? Daniel came to her side, his face weary. We have to fight this, he whispered. But Emily, it's going to get ugly. She's a top corporate lawyer, with every resource at her disposal. Then we do what we've always done, Emily replied, her voice steady. We protect Noah. together. But something else stirred inside her, a desperate, frightening thought. One she hadn't dared voice out loud until now. "There's one way to give me legal standing," she said. "Marry me." Daniel stared at her stunned. "I'm serious," she continued. "If we're married, I'm not just a caregiver, I'm his stepmother. I can testify. I can stand beside you in court, not behind you." "But Emily," he said slowly, "I've wanted to marry you for months, but I never wanted it to be under pressure. I wanted to ask you when it was joyful, not strategic." She took his hand. "Love shows up when you least expect it, Daniel. And sometimes it has to fight like hell to stay." They married the next day in a quiet ceremony on the hill behind the bakery, overlooking the valley that had brought them together. Brian and Nancy were witnesses. Noah giggled through the entire thing, sitting in Emily's arms as they exchanged vows. And just like that, they weren't just three souls who found each other, they were a family. But Madison didn't back down. In court, she stood tall, crisp, and confident, in a navy blue suit, arguing that Rachel had feared Daniel would spiral after her death. She presented letters, emails, and the signed custody documents. Her voice was controlled, polished, persuasive. Then Emily took the stand. She spoke of the night Daniel arrived in the storm, of Noah's fever, of how Daniel gave up his wealth, his title, his identity, just to be a father. And when asked why she, a woman with no biological tie, had taken in this man and his child, her answer silenced the courtroom. "Because the night they arrived, I didn't see a millionaire or a widower. I saw a father carrying the weight of grief and love in his arms. And I saw a child who didn't need a perfect home, he needed a safe one." The judge remained stoic. Days passed before the ruling came. On a snowy morning, they returned to the courtroom with knots in their stomachs. Madison sat at the opposite bench, no longer smug but visibly tense. The judge spoke slowly, each word carving its way into the room. "While the documents presented are valid, they do not outweigh the clear and present evidence of Noah's well-being. The court finds no cause to remove custody from Mr. Whitmore and recognizes Mrs. Emily Whitmore as the child's legal stepmother with all associated rights." Emily's breath caught. She squeezed Daniel's hand so tightly it trembled. But what neither of them expected was what came next. Madison rose from her seat. She walked over to them, not with malice, but with a haunted look in her eyes. "I loved Rachel like a sister," she said quietly. "I thought I was honoring her. But watching the way Noah looks at you, the way he reaches for Emily like she's always been there, I realize now I was fighting ghosts." Emily stepped forward and offered her hand. "Would you help us tell him about his mom someday?" The way Rachel would have wanted, Madison's eyes filled with tears. "Yes, I would be honored." Months passed. Emily reopened the bakery with Noah helping her taste test cookies and muffins. Daniel spent his mornings with Noah and his evenings drafting plans for a community project aimed at supporting single parents. And one spring morning, as birds returned to the trees and the world thawed from its long freeze, Emily stood in her kitchen, holding a pregnancy test. Positive. Tears rolled down her cheeks as Noah tugged at her pajama leg, asking for juice. "Soon, sweetheart," she whispered. "You're going to be a big brother." Her life had begun in silence, loss, and loneliness. Now it rang with laughter, footsteps, and tiny voices calling out for mama. Because sometimes family doesn't come the way you expect. Sometimes it arrives on your doorstep, drenched in rain, desperate for shelter. And sometimes you just have to open the door. What would you have done in Emily's place? Marry for love and legal protection, or wait and risk losing everything? Do you think Madison was right to step away in the end? Or should she have fought harder? We'd love to hear what you think about this story. Was it touching, heartwarming? Surprising if it moved you? Comment no 3 below. If you felt unsure, comment number 2. And if it didn't quite land, feel free to say no. We welcome all perspectives. And please tell us where you're watching from. We love seeing this community grow worldwide. If you haven't yet, don't forget to like, heart, and share this video to help spread more stories that touch the soul.